everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to go through all the books I want to finish before the end of 2024. So I've done a few videos. I did a fall TBR video, which those books will be just quickly gone over in this video, as well as series I want to finish and or catch up on before the end of the year. Those books will also be included in this final tally. And then I've now selected 24 additional books to finish by the end of 2024. So we'll go over those as well, plus the remaining Shadowhunters books that I need to finish before the end of the year. So that is going to be a total of 72 books, I believe, that we're gonna try to read in the last 4 months of the year. You will have seen my September TBR by now. That should have been the last video that came out. Some of these books are on my September TBR. Others I will just be trying to read within that month so that I can read all of these books by the end of 2024. I think that puts me at like 15 books a month, something like that, out of this pile. So for the month of September, you will have already seen what I've chosen, and then I will use the TBR jar probably in October and November. And then December will be finishing out whatever's on this cart. I want to clean what I'm putting on this cart off by the end of the year. I do still have books behind me that I haven't read, but these are my priority. So that being said, let's get started. The first books we'll go over quickly are the Shadowhunters books that I still need to finish, and the next one up is the Bane Chronicles, followed by Tales from the Shadowhunters Academy, and then the Lost Book of the White. These will be read in the month of September. So we're gonna build the cart throughout this video because I emptied it out for this exact purpose. Then I have the Dark Artifices, so Lady Midnight, Lord of Shadows, and Queen of Air and Darkness. I plan on reading these in October. And then I have the final trilogy. I'm still missing books 1 and 2, but it's the Last Hours trilogy. So I have Chain of Iron. I know one's Chain of Gold, and I think the last one's Chain of Thorns. I think Chain of Gold's first, then it's Chain of Iron, and then it's Chain of Thorns, I think. I still have to buy the other two. I will probably get those when I'm on vacation, and then either in the month of November or December, I plan on reading Ghosts of the Shadow Market. And then the final book to read in the universe is the Codex, the Shadowhunters Codex. So those are the remaining Shadowhunters books. Quickly gone over. I'm making progress on them. I think I can do it. Next, I'm gonna go over the 15 books on my fall TBR really quick. When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. This is on my September TBR, so it's not going to go on the cart. A Door in the Dark by Scott Rentigen, also on my September TBR, not going in the cart. Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands, also on my September TBR, not going in the cart. And The Rulebook by Sarah Adams, also on my TBR, not going in the cart. So because of that, I'm also gonna take these 3 off, and I will put my September TBR separate. Now for the rest of my fall TBR, again, if you want more about these books, go find that video where I talk a little bit more about each of these. But I have Leigh Bardugo's The Familiar, King of Scars, also by Leigh Bardugo, the first in the duology. This is also part of the series I want to finish by the end of the year. Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo, also part of the series I want to catch up on by the end of the year. Belladonna by Adeline Grace, Bride by Ali Hazelwood, The Reappearance of Rachel Price by Holly Jackson, Final Girls by Riley Sager, The Chateau by Jacqueline Goldis, You Shouldn't Have Come Here by Geneva Rose, Funny Feelings by Tara DeWitt, and finally B.K. Borison's Mixed Signals, which is the 3rd book in the Lovelight Farm series, also a series I want to finish by the end of the year. Speaking of that, now on to those books. Again, if you want more about them, go find the video where I talk about all the series I want to finish and or catch up on by the end of the year. Up first is Apprentice to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Maurer. This is the 2nd book in the Assistant to the Villain series. I plan on reading this by the end of August, so I'm not going to put this on the cart. I have Twisted Games, Twisted Hate, and Twisted Lies by Anna Wong. Keeping 13 by Chloe Walsh on my September TBR. Saving 6, Redeeming 6, and Taming 7, all by Chloe Walsh. Daisy Hates the Great Undoing on my September TBR. Magnolia Park's Into the Dark, both by Jessa Hastings. Better Hate Than Never by Chloe Leese. Rule of Wolves by Leigh Bardugo. Business Casual by B.K. Borison. Our Violent Ends by Chloe Gong. Daydream by Hannah Grace. Daydream's on my September TBR, so again, not putting that on the cart. The Legacy by Elle Kennedy, and Valve Thieves by Mary E. Pearson on my September TBR. So I do have a stack of these that's already to the side for September, which is great. None of these next books that I'm going to talk about for the first time that I want to read by the end of 2024 are on my September TBR, so these will all be new. 2 nonfiction reads that I want to get through by the end of the year. I did want to read 10 nonfiction books in 2024. I think I've read 5. I'm on my 6th right now. So this still puts me too short unless I find 2 other ones to read. But the first is The Trial of Lizzie Borden by Kara Robertson, and this is just a true story kind of detailing the trial and everything about Lizzie Borden as a person and what she went through at the time of being accused of her parents' murder. And The Problem with Everything, My Journey Through the New Culture Wars by Megan Daum, and I believe this is just kind of talking about her opinion of where we're at now. This was like from 2016, so it's a little dated, but it's just talking about like the difference between the generations, like Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z. So I'm not sure if it talks about the boomers, but that's the gist of it. Fantasy-wise, I want to read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. This is the prequel to The Hunger Games. I've never read this book. I read The Hunger Games back when it was first popular, but I've never read this. Picked this up from my sister's coworker when she was getting rid of it. Spells for Forgetting by Adrienne Young. This just sounds like a book that I want to read in October because I believe it has like witchy vibes to it. Definitely excited for that, and I've heard great things about Adrienne Young's writing. I've never read anything by her, but excited to. Masters of Death by Olivia Blake. I just picked this up recently because I was waiting for it to come out in paperback. And I think this has to do with something like vampire real estate agents. Or like Viola Merrick is a vampire and a real estate agent. Her biggest current problem is the house that she needs to sell is haunted. The ghost haunting the mansion has been murdered. And until he can solve the mystery of how he died, he refuses to move on. Sounds interesting. Sounds like a fun October spooky read. Then I want to read The Lost Story by Meg Schaefer. This is like a Narnia-esque magical realism type book where these two boys went missing in kind of a way of Narnia's storyline, and they did come back, but only one remembers what really happened to them. And then years later, a little girl goes missing, and her sister thinks that the same thing that happened to them is happening to her sister, so she recruits them for help. But I think the one that knows what's going on, there's like a secret about it. I read The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer earlier this year, and it was like a finalist for Book of the Month, and I adored that book. It was such a fast, fun, like different read. It wasn't magical realism. It was definitely like Willy Wonka for book lovers. That's how I always tell people. That's what I said, like that's the synopsis I give. But that book was beautifully written and a really fun time. So highly recommend that. And then Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. This is going to be an undertaking. This will be my first Brandon Sanderson book. I do have the first book in the Mistborn series, but that is a series I want to take on in 2025. So I figured this would be a great way to end out 2024 and by reading my first book by him, making sure I like his writing before I take on that entire series next year. Now, romances that I want to read. Emily Henry's Funny Story. This is my sister's book, so I do want to get this back to her. This will be the only Emily Henry book I haven't read. This is the only Emily Henry book I haven't read, so I'd like to catch up on that by the end of the year. I think most people know what this is about by now, but it's basically two people get together because their exes leave them for each other and get married, so their exes get married to each other. And then I guess there's just a fake relationship and stuff that comes out of that. I'm not 100% sure, but you don't really need to know too much going into a romance other than the basic trope, which I believe is fake dating. Melissa Wisner's The Second Chance Year. I want to read this right around the end of the year. I know it's not like a New Year's book, but just the way that the synopsis is and the book has fireworks on it and stuff. This just feels like a really cool way to end the year, like right around New Year's. Basically about a girl that wishes her life was different because everything goes wrong at the same time. Like she loses her job, loses her boyfriend, loses her house. Yeah. All thanks to her big mouth. So when a fortune teller offers her one wish, she jumps at the chance to redo her awful year. In that time, when she gets a chance to redo it, between like the fortune teller telling her to do that and the time resetting, she ends up kissing her brother's best friend Jacob and like has a little bit of a connection with him. And then like the next day wakes up and the year has started to redo itself. So now she has to figure out if she wants to go back to the way things were and stay that way, or if she does want to like deal with her feelings for her brother's best friend. This does happen, like the reset happens on January 1, so I was not like off in saying that I want to read it around New Year's. I would like to read Dishonestly Yours by Kristen Becker Ritchie. I think this is also best friend's brother, and like the families are like con families and stuff, and her and her friend want to get away from it, and then her friend's brother ends up following them, and he's still kind of living that life, and they don't want to deal with that, so there's a romance that comes out of there, so I think it's kind of like reluctant lovers, but also best friends brother. But I have only read one book by them, and that was Addicted to You, and I liked it. I didn't love it, but I really liked this cover, and I thought I'd give another one of their series a try. I think I'm going to continue with the Addicted series for now when I find time, but it's not something I'm like gnawing at the bit to get into. The Do-Over by Lynn Painter, in similar style to The Second Chance Here. I think this is like Groundhog's Day, and she just keeps reliving Valentine's Day over and over again until she gets it right. That's all I really know about this. I have read one other Lynn Painter book, which was better than the movies, and I listened to, I want to say it was Betting on You. I listened to that audiobook, and it was cute. So I think I'll like this. The last time I read one of her books, it was really quick, so this will be a fun, easy palate cleanser. I would love to read Allie Hazelwood's newest book, Not in Love. This is more of like an erotica romance, apparently, between two co-workers. His company's trying to take over hers, but they just like have a really strong physical attraction to each other, don't want to deal with the emotional sides of it. So I've heard mixed reviews, but I've loved everything by Allie Hazelwood. There were mixed reviews about Check and Mate, and I loved that book, so looking forward to that. I'd love to read my first Mariana Zapata book by the end of the year, and this is All Roads Lead Here. I believe this is a Neighbor, Grumpy Sunshine, Slow Burn. That's all I need to know. Jane and Edward, which is a modern reimagining of Jane Eyre by Melody Edwards. I read Once Persuaded, Twice Shy by her earlier in the year during, I think, a 24-hour readathon, and that was a persuasion retelling, and I really enjoyed that book. It was a very emotional read. I didn't think it would be as emotional as it was, but I did enjoy that book a lot, and I do want to read this one. I think she has another book coming out soon. Don't know the exact date, but I got to meet her earlier this year, and I picked up both of her books that she had out and would like to finish those up by the end of the year. Another author I got to meet was Christina Forrest, and she has The Neighbor Favor, and I also have The Partner Plot, I believe, which is the like companion novel to this that comes after this. So I'd love to get through The Neighbor Favor before the end of the year and try out her writing. She was really cool. I really enjoyed hearing her talk about her writing process and everything, so I really want to read this. This is also kind of a book about books because he's an author and she's like his biggest fan, and they were writing to each other as pen pals for a while, and then he just kind of ghosts her, and then they end up being neighbors, and she doesn't know that he's the author because I think he writes under a pen name. But I love books about books, so very much looking forward to reading that. And then the last few I have are thrillers slash horror. I think one of these might be considered horror. I have The Retreat by Sarah Pierce. I read The Sanatorium by her, which is the same detective, I believe, but this is basically like a wellness retreat has opened on an island, promising rest and relaxation, but it was once a playground of a serial killer and is rumored to be cursed. When a young woman is found dead below the yoga pavilion, Detective Ellen Warner soon learns the victim wasn't a guest. She wasn't meant to be on the island at all. When someone else drowns, Ellen begins to suspect that there's nothing accidental about these deaths. But why would someone target the guests at this luxury resort? Ellen must find the killer before the island's history starts to repeat itself. That sounds like a perfect fall read, as does Simone St. James, The Sundown Motel. I think it's considered horror, but I don't know. I know some of hers are. In 1982, Viv Delaney wants to move to New York City and to help pay for it, she takes a job as the night clerk at the Sundown Motel in Fell, New York. But something isn't right at the motel, something haunting and scary. Then in 2017, Carly Kirk has never been able to let go of the history of her Aunt Viv, who mysteriously disappeared from the Sundown Motel before she was born. Carly decides to move to Fell and visit the motel, where she quickly learns that nothing has changed since 1982 and soon finds herself ensnared in the same mysteries that claimed her aunt. So, dual timelines. When I read The Broken Girls, I think, by her, it was also dual timeline, and I really enjoyed that book, so I think I will like that as well, and I've heard great things about that. The Only One Left by Riley Sager. This was on my 24 books to read in 2024 at the beginning of the year, so it's the only one remaining that I can get because 2 of the books actually ended up being pushed off into a release date for next year. So, can't read them. This is the only one left. That was not intentional. On that list to read before the end of the year, and this is a Lizzie Borden-esque retelling, so maybe I'll read this around the same time I read the Lizzie Borden book. Then I have The Ravens by Cass Morgan and Danielle Page. This just seems like a spooky, fun fall read. It's about a sorority that I believe the girls are also witches, and stuff starts to go wrong, and there's a mystery and probably murder and things that need to be solved. So it looked interesting. Picked it up pretty cheap at Ollie's, and I guess we'll see if I get to it. Then I have First Light Wins by Ashley Elston. I don't know too much about this other than like this is about someone that's like an identity, like I don't know if she's an identity thief or if she just she's like in a program where she can't tell people who she actually is. But I've heard good things about this. I don't like to know too much about thrillers going into them. I've said that before. I like to just go in, read them, see what I think about it. Sometimes the synopsis at the beginning of a thriller gives too much away. So I don't like to read that until I'm a little bit further into the book. And then I have Middle Tide by Sarah Crouch. This is like a mysterious murder of a doctor in a small town, and then they have to solve it. That's all I know. That's all I want to know. This was a book of the month option a few months ago, May, but I didn't get it, but my sister's coworker was getting rid of it. So when I saw it in the picture that she sent me, I was like, yes, I want to read that because I almost picked it earlier this year. So we'll see how I feel about this one. This will be my first book by this author. And that is it. Actually, wait. There are some books that I don't have yet that are on the series books that I want to read. And the first is Sky Shade by Alex Astor, and that is the third book in the Light Lark series. Plan on reading that. I think it comes out in November, early November. So I will be reading that before the end of the year. The Chronicles of Never After by Melissa De La Cruz. That is the final book. The final book comes out the beginning of December, and that is the end of the story. And that's like a middle grade fantasy-esque book about fairy tales, like Disney-oriented fairy tales, but them not necessarily being told correctly. And this girl from the real world gets pulled into that. That's what it is in a nutshell. A Monsoon Rising, which is the second book in the Hurricane Wars series. That comes out, I also believe, at the beginning of December. So I'm going to try to read that in December and catch up on that series by the end of the year. The Shadows of Pearl, which is the second book in JL's House of Marion series. That comes out in just a few weeks. That comes out at the beginning of September. So I will be reading that hopefully in the month of September, but we'll see what time allows. And finally, Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver, the next book in the Rose Hill series. That comes out the same day as Shadows of Pearl in September. Again, going to try to read that in September, but I don't know that I'll be able to. So hopefully by the end of the year though. Sorry if the angle changed a little. I thought I was done, but then I remembered there were 3 books on Kindle Unlimited that I didn't talk about that I would like to read. And the first 2 are the second and third book in the Zodiac Academy series, and I believe it's The Ruthless Fae and then The Reckoning. So that's not a series I plan on finishing before the end of the year because there's like 10 or 12 books and I've only read the first one, but I do want to make it a little bit further before the end of the year, as well as Quicksilver by Callie Hart. That's a book that I've just been seeing a lot of people talk about. It's a romantasy novel. I don't know too much about it, but if I have time, I do want to slide that one in as a Kindle Unlimited read before the end of the year. So didn't want to forget those 3 books as well. So that is it. That is all 70 some books that I want to read before the end of 2024. Wish me luck. This is going to be a challenge to clear this entire cart by the end of the year, but I'm up for it. I'm excited. I'm hoping it'll be a fun end of the year challenge, and that these books, which are kind of at the forefront of my mind right now in my TBR, will help me get through the rest of the year without slumping, but we shall see. And I thank you so much if you've made it this far. Let me know if any of these books are on your TBR to finish by the end of the year, or if you've read any of them, let me know what you think. And I hope to see you all in the next video.